With my colleague Sarmistapal, we recently co-edited a book with 23 of the world's leading authorities in the field called Decentralizing Governance, Crafting Effective Democracies Around the World. And at one point, we had to decide, should we go with one of the biggest, most reputable, well-established commercial presses, or with an open access press, in this case, LSE Press. And so we decided to be inclusive and canvass all 23 contributors. And the support was absolutely overwhelming, not a single dissenter in favor of open access publishing. And what was notable to me was that the most senior people, most experienced people who had been in the field the longest, and most active as academic researchers, were adamant that open access was the way to go. And the reason, to quote one Indian colleague, was that if we charge 105 euros per book, which is what the counter offer was, nobody in India was going to read this book. Even the academic libraries in the biggest, most established universities in places like Delhi and Mumbai don't have the sorts of budgets to buy books that cost 105 euros per unit. And that meant that Indian students weren't going to read it, and also Indian academics weren't going to read it. And what he wanted, given that he was doing research on decentralization in India, was to have broad access and for everyone to read it. And this made us think, the research that we're publishing we want it to have an impact across the world, especially given the topic, which is the political economy of development. We wanted to have an impact not just among students and academics in places like the UK, France, Germany, and the US, but in developing countries all across the world. And this research has already been funded by governments and universities in all of the places in which we're based. So in my case, by the LSE, meaning by the government. Why should the government be made to pay again when the libraries have to pay these very high prices for books? What it means is that fewer people read it, fewer people absorb the ideas, and it has much less of an impact. By contrast, publishing open access means that you have an enormously larger market, as it were, market in quotes. You have an enormously larger readership, including people from government and civil society, the sorts of social movements of poor people, for example, or farmers or community leaders who simply have no access to books that cost 100 euros. And because this book is now available through LSE Press on the web, free to download all over the world by anyone with a device, including a phone. So the kind of readership, the sort of access to the ideas and arguments and information that we're putting out there, which again has already been paid for by public sectors all across the world, is massively larger than it would be otherwise. I looked into it as a result of this conversation, and it turns out that commercial presses and even academic presses that charge these sorts of high prices for books, the business model is where they want to sell 400 units worldwide in the lifetime of the book to rich country university libraries. And if they can sell 400 units, then they've covered the cost of producing a book. The last time I looked, this book that we just published a few months ago had downloaded 4,000 times, and that's just in the first few months. So, that gives you an idea of the difference in readership.